Alright, hey guys, Fritz here, and this is the second episode of my Rengar tutorial. I'm going to be covering summoners, abilities, and the laning phase. I actually had this episode finished, but then Sony Vegas crashed on me and I lost all my material, so if I miss anything, I'm very sorry. I am happy to answer any questions. I'm just really frustrated that all those hours of work went down the drain. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, on Rengar, so you have three different choices for your summoner spells. First up is Flash Ignite. Flash Ignite is the summoner spell combination that I run and Ryan Choi also runs. Flash Ignite gives me lane dominance, especially in a meta where all top laners seem to take Flash Teleport. With Ignite, I'm often able to kill my lane opponent at level 1, 2, or 3. Ignite also gives you outplay potential in lane. If you're fighting an opponent in the top lane brushes, you can use Ignite to give vision, flash away to dodge an auto attack, and then jump right back onto the person. I had a good clip of this against a Tryndamere, but Law Replay is glitched up and it won't let me load the replay. Your second option is the Take Flash Exhaust. This is what Dekar runs. Exhaust functions as both an offensive and defensive summoner. When you exhaust someone, not only are you decreasing their move speed and damage, but you also decrease their armor and magic resist by a flat 10. This is especially good on Rengar, who stacks with penetration. Exhaust has the potential to scale much better into the late game than Ignite. However, you are sacrificing a bit of early laning power, as killing someone in lane with Exhaust is much harder than killing someone in lane with Ignite. You sacrifice that early killing power for the potential to duel champions that you normally wouldn't be able to, such as Riven and Darius, come late. Your final option is the Take Teleport. Now, Teleport is not a combat summoner, and thus you are an assassin left without a combat summoner. This is why I don't take it, and I don't recommend you take it either. With Rengar, there is one cool trick you can do with Teleport though. If you use your ultimate and immediately teleport somewhere, Rengar will turn invisible immediately. There will be no transition period like there normally is. You can use this to escape from a gank or teleport in invisible, but however, you are wasting stealth time during the teleport, so your stealth becomes much shorter. Now, as Rengar after the laning phase, you're roaming around, you're looking for picks. You want to make a play before the fight happens, kill the AD carry and put your team in a situation where you can fight a 5v4 or even a 5v3 if you get a really good pick. With Teleport, you're saying, I'm going to go and split push a lane and then TP in mid-fight and try and change it. I'm going to make a play with that TP. And that's not what you want to be doing as Rengar. That's why TP does not work very good as Rengar, because you want to make a play before the fight happens, not during the fight. As a Rengar player, you should always be looking to build ferocity. Whenever you're not farming a minion wave, you want to be on 5. The reason you want to be on 5 is because it gives you access to these empowered versions of your abilities, which give you utility and damage. Every time you use your ultimate, you want to be on 5 ferocity. Now, of the 3 empowered abilities, the one that's going to give you the most damage is your empowered Q. It works just like your normal Q in that it's an auto attack reset that scales off your bonus AD. However, the empowered Q gives you bonus AD afterwards and attack speed in addition to doing more damage. So, when you're looking for a kill on a target that's squishy and can't get away, this is your best bet. Your empowered W is going to give you a heal based on how low you are. Now, something to note is that this actually is not what you want to use when clearing minion waves and when you're low mid-late game. The reason is because with lifesteal, your empowered Q is actually going to heal you more than your empowered W. The only time I would recommend using this after laning phase is when you're dying from a dot, ignite, something, minion damage, and you need that burst of heal. This does the least damage of the 3 empowered abilities. The empowered Bola is extremely good. The empowered Bola replaces the slow on the Bola with a root in addition to dealing more damage. The empowered Bola has a few important uses. The first use is in the laning phase when you're up against an opponent that you can't actually fight, such as Riven, Darius, or Jax. You're going to use the Bola to both farm from a distance and poke them down to maybe get them in a spot where you can actually all-in them. An empowered Bola into a regular Bola actually does a good bit of damage and can be used to chunk targets. The second major use of his empowered Bola is when you're looking to kill a squishy champion that you do have the damage to assassinate, however they have an escape ability, and this is to hold them down in place long enough for you to deal your damage and then eventually get out. It can also be used in reverse, when fighting a champion like Riven where their damage relies on a movement ability. The empowered Bola is going to hold them in place and let you hit them without them being able to retaliate too much. Now I'm going to show you guys a clip where I'm able to use the empowered Roar and the empowered E to pick up 2 kills bot lane and not die in the process. Alright, so in this clip I'm using my Caitlyn as bait to try and kill the other team's bot lane. Alright, so I wait for them to go on her and use their mobility spells, and I immediately jump onto the Tristana and use my empowered Bola on her. This allows me and Caitlyn to both hit Tristana at the same time and kill her pretty much instantly. Then I go after the Thresh. So I go in onto the Thresh under the tower, however he's able to keep me there quite a while and I take a lot of tower damage. I flash away and see myself at 3 ferocity, so I immediately QW the hit 5 and then W again to heal myself and not die from the minion aggro. Alright, so as Rengar, our goal in the laning phase is to get to level 6 without dying. Killing our lane opponent actually is not that important, and even dying in laning phase isn't that important because once we get level 6, we leave the lane and we roam. The laning phase with Rengar is going to end at level 6. Rengar is strongest when he's not on the map because that puts pressure on everyone. They don't know where you are, you could be ulting their lane, they have to respect that. And if they don't, well, you're gonna get a bunch of easy kills. As Rengar, there are 3 different types of lane matchups. The first type of lane I'm gonna go over is the easy lane. The first lane I'm gonna talk about is the easy lane. This is gonna be whenever you're against a tank or a ranged champion. This is gonna be champions such as Sion, Cho'Gath, Jace, and Nidalee. The reason these matchups are so easy is because the tanks don't do enough early damage and aren't tanky enough for you to actually respect them. Ranged champions don't have the base stats to fight you. As Rengar, you can get right up in their face really easy, and in a 1v1 in melee range, the melee champ is almost always gonna win. Because of how you can use the bushes to extend your auto attack range, you become a ranged champion with melee stats, which lets you dominate both of these archetypes. Alright, so now we're going to go over exactly what you have to do to beat this type of champion. Alright, so this trick is pretty important, so pay close attention. What we're going to do is we're going to walk up into the second bush, and when we see their minions coming for the first wave, we're going to walk up to them and we're going to try and drag them over to the bush as close as we can. What this is going to do is 2 things. The first reason is fairly obvious. It puts the minion wave closer to the bushes. This lets us jump on the other player every time they walk up the CS, especially if they're a melee champ. Now, since the bushes are so close to the minions, not only does this hurt them, but this helps us a lot. Because every time between an auto, we can walk back into the bush, and we're essentially kiting them. Because every time, instead of having to walk forward, as a melee champ generally would, where it's kind of reverse kiting, where you walk in front of them, in auto, well, we can walk backwards into the bush, and then we can reset that giant leap range, and then leap on them again. It'll be attack, move back into the bush, attack, move back into the bush, and they have a hard time retaliating. The second major benefit this has is it's going to aggro all 3 of the enemy's melee creep onto one of your melee creep. This is going to make the wave push towards you. This is a good thing, because with our hyper aggression, we're going to be tanking the minions, and normally if you don't set up the wave like this, it is going to push towards them. And what they can do, as Searches and other like tank top laners often do, is they'll sit back and just let the wave come right to their tower, because you aggro the minions onto yourself and the wave would then push to them. But since we do this, it doesn't do that. It still pushes towards us. This is really good, because if the wave is under their tower, then they're not in range for our leap and we can't use our passive in the bushes. This can be done anytime during the laning phase where the minions are crashing together in the center of the lane. If you're able to do this, the closer the minions are to the bushes, the better you can utilize your passive and take full advantage of it during the laning phase. Now that we have the lane in the right position, we want to sit in the bush and wait for the enemy laner to show. Make sure that while you last hit the minions before the enemy laner shows, you're doing it while your minions' auto attacks are in the air to kill it. This is going to make the waves still push towards you as long as you do it correctly. Alright, now that your enemy laner has entered the lane, What we're going to do is we're going to sit in the bush, and as soon as they walk in, we jump with our auto, and then we use our Q as an auto attack reset, and then auto attack them as many times as you can. And then you're just going to go back in the bush and you're going to repeat. And make sure you're kiting in between. You're leading your character so that you're getting as many autos in as you can. Between autos, you want to be walking in front of them. Right, and anytime they go up for a CS, they should be taking damage for it. You can ignore the minions for the most part. Either you'll get them low enough to kill them immediately, or they'll start to do what this Cho'Gath is doing, where they sit just a little bit out of range. So when you do that, you use the minions to extend your auto attack range. So what I do is I jump to a minion, throw a bola, and then finish him off. You can do this with all of your abilities. You can jump to the minion, walk up to him, bola him. You can jump to a minion, walk up and Q him. You can jump to him and then hit him with the W as well. This is how you're going to most often get the kills, not from just jumping onto him from the bush. Alright, so here's an example of me against a range champion. In this case, it's going to be Gnar. Gnar is very squishy until he gets Mega Gnar, and even in Mega Gnar, his abilities are pretty easy to bait out, so this matchup is actually fairly easy. So, as you see, he's sitting way back behind his minions, but because he's so far away from his minions, I'm able to actually put all that damage on him without his minions aggroing onto me. Right, so now he starts to stay outside my auto attack range from the bush, so what I do is I use the minions to extend my leap range. I auto him a few times, and it's okay that I'm trading damage because I know that I'll be able to get the kill pretty soon off of this. So then eventually I do jump to him and I kill him. Against ranged champions, you really want to take advantage of how squishy Riot's made them in comparison to melees. Anytime you're in melee range of them, you're probably going to win the fight. This is how you win lanes against ranged champions who do a lot of damage, is you abuse your passive so that you're in melee range of them and then you win the straight up fights. Now we're going to go over a clip against Riven. Riven is part of the second group of champions you may lane against, and these are the skill matchups. This group includes, but is not limited to, Aurelia, Riven, Fiora, Cassiopeia, Gragas, and Jarvan. The reason these champions are considered skill matchups is because all these champions have either the CC, the mobility, or the damage to scrap with you in the early levels. With these champions you have to play around their power spikes. Against different ones, I'm going to level different abilities at level 1. For instance, in the Riven matchup, I start with my E, so I can stack up Ferocity and farm from afar, where she can definitely beat me in level 1 fights. In this matchup, you have to sit back and play around her cooldowns. If you ever see her use a spell needlessly, that means it's time to fight. You with all your cooldowns up versus a Riven with only half of her spells, you are generally going to win the fight. Using her empowered bola against Riven is especially good because it stops her from using both her Q and her E. Something to note is that if the Riven is playing fairly passively, what you can do is you can poke her down with your empowered W and your E. Because Riven has the lowest health regen in the game, you can abuse that, especially since you have the heal on your W. So going in for short little trades from a distance with your W or E, you can whittle her down until she has the back or until she buys lifesteal. Another example of playing around power spikes in the skill matchups is against Cassiopeia. Against a Cassiopeia, I'm going to start Q and put as much pressure as I can on level 1, because as soon as she hits level 2, the matchup becomes much more difficult, because jumping on her is going to mean I'm going to take probably around half my HP and damage from QEs. After that, I'm just going to farm from a distance with my E and get level 6 safely. I want to note something really important right here. Even if you kill some of these skill matchups early in the laning phase, they may hit a power spike where they are stronger than you, even with that kill deficit. In this case, I killed Xin Zhao really early in the laning phase. However, just because he's Xin Zhao, he's still able to fight me and actually probably could have killed me if he had played this better. This is especially true at level 6 because Rengar's ultimate actually does not help him that much in combat. His ultimate is mostly a roaming tool. You can use it to quickly gain ferocity, but for the most part, his ultimate is not going to be something that's going to help you win 1v1s. Next up are what I like to call the unwinnable matchup. These aren't truly unwinnable, however, how you do in laning phase depends on how they play, not how you play. The only time you'll be going even or getting kills are when they make mistakes. There isn't much outplay potential. I don't actually have any clips of these matchups right now, so I'm just going to play some clips of me against ranged champions, which are the ones that people seem to have the most trouble with, so you can go back and look at these later. The reason these matchups are so hard is because they either have a way to mitigate your damage, or a way to put out even more damage than you in a 1v1, or even a combination of both. Now this group consists of Jax, Pantheon, and Darius. Darius is going to win fights from levels 1 Say 18. The reason is because he builds tanky and he has enough damage built into his kit that you're not going to be able to win fights. In addition to this, if he takes Ignite, his bleed damage is going to absolutely destroy you. Against Jax, you have to somehow deal with his E. Not only does Jax scale super hard into late game, his laning phase is very good against Rengar as well because of his E. The reason his E is so good is that it dodges your main damage source, your Qs. A smart Jax is going to take his E level 1 and simply walk at you and fight with auto attacks. His E is going to dodge not only all the minions' auto attacks, but your auto attacks and your Q if you took your Q at level 1, which is why I take E against Jax at level 1. If you notice that the Jax started Q or W at level 1, you should try and fight him and put as much damage on him as you can to try and dissuade him from fighting you later. Though, as soon as he takes a point in his E, he will be winning trades with you, and you should try and stay away from him and farm from a distance. Against Pantheon, you have one and one window only where you can kill Pantheon, assuming he plays smart. That opening is right when he walks into lane before he's stacked his passive. After the level 1, a smart Pantheon will hold on to his passive and then try and trade with you when it's up, and then use his W to refresh the passive. With a combination of his passive, his guaranteed crits, and his ranged spears, tower diving is very easy for Pantheon, so you do need to be careful when you're under tower. It's often better to back and lose CS than die under tower. Alright, now that we've gone over most matchups, I want to give you guys a few tricks that may help during laning phase. The first one's pretty simple. When you're walking back the lane after backing, you can throw a bola at either the Gromp or the double golems to gain a quick ferocity stack. As I mentioned before, the more ferocity stacks you have, the more of a threat you are, so gaining ferocity stacks on your way back to lane is a really good thing. If the wave is at your tower and the champion you're playing against can probably dive you but you don't want to back yet, what you can do is you can go and do a jungle camp. This often will make them think that you're backing, and then they will back, leaving you for a free lane for a good wave or two. So let's say we killed the laner at level 1, so they teleported back the lane and you got them low off of harassing them. Often, the best thing to do is to go up and just straight out dive them when the wave's at their tower, even if you die for it. This is going to make them lose all the CS that were on the tower, and they don't have TP to get back the lane. They lose all the XP of the minions that were under tower, and you both will get back the lane at the same time with an XP advantage, and often the lane will be reset by then because the minions were dying to the tower. The gold that Rengar has is going to be a lot more valuable than the gold his lane opponent has at level 6 because he's going to be moving around the map, so that little bit of gold you gave them by diving him was worth it because you denied them experience, you got the level 6 quicker, and your roam at level 6 will be so much more deadly because you'll have more gold from more kills. Thanks for watching, guys. The next episode will be about the mid game and roam. I'm sorry this one took so long to put out, but I had a bunch of problems with Sony Vegas crashing and losing my data. I wish everyone luck with your future games. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe so you can see when the next one's out. Peace.